Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Dolapo and I film about faith, beauty and lifestyle, and I also film about fully funded scholarships and how to apply for fully funded scholarships and also various opportunities for international students. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some helpful tips on how to prepare for the IELTS exam. So I have written the IELTS exam and I scored an 8.0. Now, this was without using any special classes or coaching centers. I studied all by myself. And so in this video, I'm going to be sharing the helpful tips that I used and also the resources that I used when I was preparing for my exam. Now, this video is a request from one of my lovely subscribers who had requested that I film a video about how to study for the IELTS exam. Because if you watched my previous video, I talked about the documents that you would need to apply for a fully funded scholarship. And one of those documents is an English language certificate. And the most popular one that people do submit is the IELTS. So backstory, I've written the IELTS exam twice actually. The first time I wrote it was in 2021. Now, at the time I wrote my IELTS exam, I was preparing for an international examination that required me to have an IELTS score, overall band score of more than 7 and more than 7 in each one. That's in listening, writing, speaking, and reading. So when I took the IELTS exam that time in 2021, I studied by myself. I used some resources which I'll be sharing in today's video. But when the results came out, I had wait, let me check. I'm looking at my results now from 2021. And I had a 9 in my listening, I had a 6.0 in my reading, I had a 7.5 in my writing, and an 8.0 in my speaking, with an overall band score of 7.5. Now, this was actually a really good result, to be honest. But the 6.5 in my reading was just not it for me, because for the exam I wanted to write, I needed to have at least a 7 in each band. But thankfully, I was still able to use these IELTS results to apply for my fully funded scholarship and also to apply for other universities in the UK. So it wasn't a waste, even though that was not the intention as at that time. Now, fast forward to 2023, I had to retake the IELTS exam again. And this time around, I was able to get the score I needed. Now, the second time I took my IELTS exam, it's very funny because after preparing for the exam, I sat down for the exam again, and then my results came out. This time around, this was 2023, I had an 8.5 in listening, an 8.0 in reading. Now, the result came out with a 6.5 in writing and a 7.5 in speaking. Now, when I saw that result, 6.5 in writing, that was the only thing that was below 7. I was devastated. I spoke to my friends about it, spoke to my family members as well, and my friends really encouraged me to apply for a remark. And this was because I was very confident in what I wrote down. Like, you know, when you start for an exam and you came out from the exam feeling very confident that you have done your best and that, you know, you are expecting a very good score. So that was what happened. I was really confident that that 6.5 wasn't what I deserved. So I decided to apply for a remark. I think to apply for a remark, it's about, I can't remember, I think I paid about £90 to apply for the remark. And the way it works is that if they remark your exam and if the score becomes higher after the remarking, they'll refund your money back to you. So it was a gamble and it was a risk, but I was willing to take that risk because I was really sure of what I wrote down for my writing. And I'm going to be talking in more details about how I prepared and all of that. So I decided to apply for a remark, and after waiting for about, I think almost a week, I got a response back that my test had been remarked. Lo and behold, my writing score was remarked and it went from a 6.5 to an 8.0. Guys, I was so happy because I was confident that I did well in that writing test. So when the 8.0 came out, I was just really glad that I took that chance to actually, you know, remark. So this is just a tip I just want to share. If you feel like maybe your result isn't something that you expected, or if you feel like you really did well or you did better than the score you were given, you can take that chance and actually apply for a remark, and you never can tell. So I applied for the remark and I got an 8.0 in my writing, which gave me an overall band score of 8.0. So just to recap, I finally had an 8.5 in my listening, an 8.0 in my reading, an 8.0 in my writing, and a 7.5 in my speaking. So can you see how my score from 2021 to 2023 actually improved? I had a 6.5 in my reading score previously and 8.0 in my reading score this time around, and I'm going to be sharing how I was able to achieve that. Now, the second time I did my IELTS, I'd already practiced a lot on my reading, especially in terms time-wise. So I looked at, the mistakes I made in my previous ones. For speaking, for listening, I didn't really have an issue with those ones because I already had like an idea of what it was. And to be fair, in my previous IELTS exam, my listening and my speaking, they were quite good. So I decided to focus my attention for the second exam. I decided to focus my attention on my reading and also my writing, because the writing test can be quite tricky. If you don't know the concept, or if you don't understand the concept of how to write for the IELTS exam, you might actually get a low band score. Going back to my first IELTS exam, I had a 6.0 in my reading because I didn't have enough time to prepare. And this brings me to my point. Practice, practice, practice. And don't just practice, but practice with a timer. So let's say, for example, the exam is going to take about 1 hour. When you are practicing, practice with that 1 hour timing. And this will help you in the exam itself. So I think that was one of the mistakes I made. When I was practicing for my reading the first time, I wasn't practicing enough with the timer. I was practicing as long as I could. And when I got to the exam, the questions were so difficult, more than what I expected. So when the questions came in difficult, I didn't have enough time to answer all of the questions. So I didn't finish on time. I think I had about 10 or 20 answers that I didn't fill in. And I wasn't surprised when I came out with a 6.0, to be honest. When I was preparing for my second exam, I had a notebook just like this, and I would practice every single day. As you can see, I would practice and then I would actually score myself. And this was actually to keep track of, my progress as I was practicing. So I did for reading, I did for writing. I was always writing. You can see here, I was always writing comprehensions just to, be familiar with it, because I'm going to be talking more actually about resources that you can use to practice. This is just a general introduction about the whole preparation for me and my personal experience while preparing. I realized that the writing test was also a bit difficult for me because I just wanted to understand the concept of what they were looking for. And I think on the website, there's a place on the website that talks about what the examiners will be looking for in each band. So it's important to go through that and actually see and make sure that you understand what they are going to be looking at when they're assessing your test or your paper. So that's very important. Now let's go to some of the things that I did to help me prepare for my IELTS exam. The first time I was preparing, I'd never done IELTS before, so that was in 2021. So I used a lot of resources. Now, some of the resources I used was one, the Cambridge IELTS. So for my reading and my listening, I prepared using the Cambridge IELTS textbook. It has different volumes, volume 1, 2. I'm sure the volume should be more than 10 now. And each different volume have different questions. Some of the questions they do repeat. But by practicing using this textbook, it gave me an idea of how the questions in the exam would look like. I think you can find the online version as well, and you can download it and use it to practice. Another resource that I use as well is a website called ieltsonlinetest.com. Now, this website was actually a lifesaver for me because it had all of the tests. That's listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And there are also mock tests, and each test is actually timed as well. So that way, you are also going to be practicing under exam conditions. I would highly recommend this website. I'm going to be sharing the link in the description as well. It's ieltsonlinetest.com. I majorly use this for my reading. I use it for my writing as well, to be honest. And for my writing test, a major textbook I use is called IELTS Made Easy, and I'm going to be sharing the screenshots as well. Now, this textbook actually breaks down and explains what the writing test is and how you can actually get a high writing score. So it breaks it down. You know that the IELTS exam has a writing test 1 and a test 2. So there are about 2 of these textbooks. So one textbook explains how the test 1 is and what you should do, what synonyms you should have. It gives you vocabularies as well. It explains the structure of your writing, and reading this textbook thoroughly really helped me in my writing test, because now I understood what I needed to do. I learned new vocabularies, you know, the whole putting in words like however, furthermore, subsequently into your writing, just things that can make your writing rich. This textbook explains it. So I would highly recommend this. It's in 2 parts. It's for the test 1 and the test 2. Now, for my speaking test, I used another resource called Marker IELTS, and I'm going to be sharing a screenshot as well. Now, this gives you a rundown of different speaking questions that can be asked. To be honest, speaking is my strength, so I didn't really focus too much. I think I started preparing for my speaking test like few days before my exam, because I believe that it was all about your confidence, your vocabularies, and they just want to see how well you can speak English. So even if you get a question that you're not familiar with, or maybe they ask you a question that's about a different field that you're not conversant with, just speak. They want to see your eloquency in your speaking, and that's how they're assessing you. So it's important for you to also practice your speaking as well. And I use the Marker IELTS because there are lists of questions that you could potentially be asked, and it also includes past questions as well that have been asked in the exam previously. So that's for my speaking. One more thing I use for my reading for my second exam, because the first time around I didn't get a very good score in my reading. So I spoke to people about it for the second time. I had an English teacher then in university who recommended this textbook. It's called IELTS Trainer. I'm going to be leaving the screenshot here. I highly recommend that book as well. And it doesn't just have reading test, it also has listening. I also use that to practice for my listening, most especially in my second exam. I use this majorly for my second exam to practice for my listening, my reading, and even my writing as well. So it has loads of questions, and I think some of the questions in that textbook have actually been asked in the actual IELTS exam. Now, the last resource that I used was a Telegram group page. It's called IELTS. Now, this Telegram group page has thousands of members in that group, and usually what they do is that they send in essays. So people send in their essays, they will type it out, and they will send it for people to vet their essays and give feedbacks. Now, this was helpful for me because I was reading through the feedbacks that people had already put down, and I put in those feedbacks into my practice as well. So for example, if someone is commenting or giving a feedback about someone's essay and maybe they didn't use enough linking words, I applied that feedback into my practice. So that would really help me as well in my writing, because I think most people struggle with either reading or writing. So I would highly recommend, joining that Telegram group page as well, because that really helped me. So these are the resources that I used, guys, and I didn't have to use any coaching center. I didn't have to use any training center. I practiced by myself, and it's very important to keep practicing every single day. I made sure I was practicing my writing. That way you have an idea, because you could be asked different topics in your writing test. For example, the last exam I wrote, I was given a topic to talk about like animals extinction and things like that. To be honest, when I read that question the first time, I couldn't think of what to write. But thank God, God helped me. I started to put in just adding words together. Before I knew it, I had my flow of thoughts. I wrote down a very good piece, and that was because I've been practicing a lot. And the reason why practicing your writing helps is because you could be asked any topic, and if you're not sure of a particular area, for example, you could be asked to write about business, you could be asked to write about climate change, you could be asked to write about global warming. So practicing writing, opens your mind to other things that you may be asked. So even if you never had an idea of global warming before, if you've practiced it before in your writing or in your personal study time, you'll be able to remember some things for your actual exam. And it's also important to learn some new vocabularies as well, because that will help you, and even linking words as well will help you in your writing. And then finally, what I would say is that create a folder. So what I did was that I had a folder on my phone. I'm sure by this time, guys, you know that I'm a folder person. Like, I always try to organize all of my resources and materials materials in a folder because it's easy to access. So once you've gathered all of these materials together, then just combine them all in a folder and keep. That way you can always access the folder and get any resources that you need. Now, you don't have to have different resources or 10 or 100 of resources. If you have just the Cambridge IELTS, that's fine, because most of these resources that I mentioned, they don't have just, or they don't focus on just one particular test, like the Cambridge IELTS, the IELTS trainer, ieltsonlinetest.com. Most of these resources have all of the tests: reading, writing, speaking, and even listening. So you can, use any of these resources. You might not have to use all of them. You can just use one of them and just keep practicing. What really matters is your practice. And one thing I will also say about the IELTS online test, they also have like past questions from the previous IELTS exam. So that way you can also, see. And if you are struggling with like practicing under exam conditions, you can use this website, because when you start the mock test, there will be a timer there as well. And once the timer stops, you have to stop because the questions will go away. So if you are struggling with like putting a timer up yourself, you can use this. So depending on what your learning needs are, depending on how you study, these are just some of the resources that you can use to practice that can help you to prepare for your IELTS exam. So I hope this video has helped you today. I just want to encourage you that the IELTS exam, I don't think it's very difficult. I think it's just understanding the concept of the exam. So don't be discouraged. Just practice enough. Give enough time to practice and practice and practice and practice. That builds your confidence for the exam, and hopefully these resources would help you as well to achieve your goals. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if it's helpful. Put down your comments in the comment section, and I'll see you in my next video. Wish you all the best. Bye.